Let's start with the 5 seed hosting. And by the way, this acts as almost like a de facto conference championship game for Notre Dame, right? So everybody else has to play that 13th game. They get their 13th game. It just happens to be in the playoff. That's why they're fine with this model where they're never going to be in the top 4 and get a bye. Notre Dame hosting Boise State. Notre Dame's undefeated. They get them at home, and Notre Dame wins the game. Next up, number 6, Texas and Michigan. This is a rematch, and yet it's a different location. Okay, so regardless of what happens in that week 2 matchup, which I can't wait for, by the way, I think Texas at home with that pressure and that quarterback, Quinn Ewers, they get it done, and Texas beats Michigan and then will face Utah in a 6-3 matchup. So Texas wins in the first round. They're on to the college football playoff quarterfinals. Then in the 7-10 game, guys, who doesn't want to see this? Dan Lanning having to face Kalen DeBoer? We got it twice last year. I mean, this is an epic matchup right here. I cannot wait for some sort of matchup like an Alabama going to Oregon, Michigan going to Texas. This is going to be incredible. Alabama goes to Oregon. Oregon is ridiculously talented. I know Alabama is as well, but at home, I think that environment, quite honestly, surprises Alabama. I know they're not, listen, I'm not suggesting that they don't play in great environments, because they do. The SEC is chock full of difficult and incredible environments. I said surprised them. I think Eugene will surprise them. Autzen Stadium is phenomenal. I think Oregon wins that game, and they go on to the quarterfinal. And then you've got Penn State hosting a college football playoff game. This is actually, to be honest with you, when I first thought of the playoff, and I originally thought to myself, I want teams to host playoff games. You know the location that I thought of first? Number 1 location? Happy Valley. I was like, I want to see a playoff whiteout as much as I need my next breath of air. That environment is amazing. Ole Miss goes to Penn State. That's going to be a phenomenal game. I think that the home team wins, and I've got Penn State going on to the quarterfinal, and they'll face Ohio State. So this is what it looks like then in that next round. All right? In that next round, here's what we've got. You've got the quarterfinals where Ohio State plays Penn State, Georgia plays Oregon, Texas plays Utah, Notre Dame, and Miami. Now, judging based on how they've written the language in terms of bowl tie-ins, I believe that what you would have is Ohio State, Penn State in the Rose Bowl, Miami, Notre Dame in the Peach Bowl, Georgia, Oregon in the Sugar, and Utah, Texas in the Fiesta. That's the way that I believe that this would play out. Okay, now, not guaranteeing that, but that's the way I believe this would play out. So, Rose Bowl, Ohio State, Penn State, an all Big Ten Rose Bowl, Ohio State, Penn State. Ohio State beats Penn State for the second time. They go on to the college football playoff semifinal. In the 2-7 game, which I've got in the Sugar Bowl, Georgia and Oregon, now Dan Lanning has to face his old mentor in Kirby Smart. I believe Georgia is just too good. They're just too talented. In my estimation, Georgia is a national title caliber team. They win, they go to the college football semifinals. Texas and Utah, as much as I love Utah and as much as I would give Utah the benefit of the doubt if they could host this game, which they should be able to, can we please get rid of these bowl games in the quarterfinals? But listen, I digress. In a bowl environment, you look at that, and I'm like, in the Fiesta Bowl, Utah and Texas is going to win that game. They're more talented, and even with Cam Rising, I like Quinn Ewers, and I like Sark, and I like that offensive line. So Texas wins. They go to the semifinals. And then you've got a Notre Dame, Miami. Can we get the shirts back? Can we get a Catholics? I'm not going to say it. You know what I was going to say. Maybe the shirts will come back. I don't know, because this would be epic. In a college football playoff quarterfinal to see Notre Dame play Miami, this would be in a Peach Bowl, I believe. I like Notre Dame in this matchup. I think Notre Dame would go on and go to the college football playoff semifinals. There's something that I really believe in with Miami, but then when it gets to this point, do we really trust Mario Cristobal in a quarterfinal? Let's hope he's not in a position to take a knee, if you know what I mean. Right? Now we get to the semifinals, and this is how I think that the semifinals, the way that the language is written, the number one seed would get the choice of where to play. Okay? So they would be deciding between the Orange Bowl and the Cotton Bowl. And Ohio State would be sitting there and they'd be like, oh, okay, well, that's interesting. Where do we want to play? And then somebody smart would say, time out. Why don't we put Georgia in a more precarious situation? And then another smart person would be like, great idea. Does it really matter whether we play Notre Dame in Dallas or Miami? The answer is no. It doesn't matter at all for Ohio State. Does it matter if Georgia gets to play in Dallas or Miami against Texas? The answer is yes. So in my model, Ohio State makes their pick based on the other matchup. They say, hey, Georgia, go to Dallas and face Texas in the Cotton Bowl. And the Orange Bowl is Ohio State and Notre Dame. Orange Bowl, I've got Ohio State winning that. They go on to play for the national championship. And because of that decision, and because of what the crowd would be in Jerry's World, in AT&T Stadium, just a few miles north of Austin, I've got Texas beating Georgia because of the location. It would be their third matchup. I'm giving Sark the benefit of the doubt in the third matchup that Sark would bring something that was just like unworldly as far as a game plan out. Ewers would be on fire. I think back to that game against Bama a couple of years ago when they didn't even have a team that really should have beaten the Bryce Young Alabama team, and yet they were in line to beat the Bryce Young Alabama team until Bryce Young put a cape on his back and spun out because Ryan Watts blitzed from the corner and they didn't take a good angle. You remember the game. We were all there. It was a million degrees. Why? Because we kicked it at noon because it's the best time slot in college football. I think that game would be epic. And I believe that Sark, because of the location and what he would have in a third matchup, would get past Georgia. And then Quinn Ewers gets to play Ohio State in the national championship game. Yes! Guys, I gave you Dan Lanning against Kalen DeBoer. I gave you Dan Lanning against Kirby Smart. I gave you a Texas-Georgia matchup 3 times, this one being in the Cotton Bowl in Arlington, and now in Mercedes, down in Atlanta, Ohio State plays Texas, and because Texas let it all hang out, I just don't think that they have enough, and my national champion is going to be Ohio State. I had them as my number 1 team in the preseason. I have them as my number 1 seed in the playoff, and I think that the Buckeyes will go on and win the national championship. But as I walk through that exercise, folks, how good is this going to be? This is going to be incredible. I can't wait. You can't wait. Let's get the season here as quickly as possible. Thank you for watching the Joel Klatt Show YouTube channel. And if you liked this clip, make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel. And you can stay up to date on all of my college football coverage.